It had been many years since I'd retired from being a private dick, and in the years that followed the hanging up of my private dick raincoat, I tried my hand at many different professions: clog carver, beaver trainer, clitoral improvement advisor, cheese consultant, and finally rubber plant adoption officer. But none of those jobs really gave me the satisfaction I desired. So when a chance meeting with an old girlfriend led to the opportunity to resume my career as a dick, I jumped at it. The woman in question wasn't just an ex-girlfriend, she was the first who swallowed. I bumped into her that wet, foggy winter night in Soho. I'd spotted her in the distance, even through the dirty London fog, as she walked towards me, amidst all the scum and slime that trawled the Soho nights. The drug pushers, the pimps, the drunks, the drunk pushers, drunk pimps, merchant bankers. She spotted me, and when close enough, she grabbed my arm, dragging me into the doorway of the 24-hour emergency sombrero emporium. Unfortunately, due to the unexpected slump in demand for Mexican hat wearing, the shop had closed a few months before. A dusty matador model in the window wearing a flame sombrero now looked a very sad and poignant figure. "Basil," she said to me, "you must help me. My husband is acting strangely. He won't tell me what he's up to, and I'm worried. I will pay you well if you follow him and find out what he's up to." Well, how could I refuse? The woman was named Susan, and she'd once been a close friend and lover, and we parted on good terms, so there was no reason not to go to her assistance. And as well as that, she was still quite a good looker, and part of me was hoping for a shag. You can guess which part. When I told her that I'd do it, she thanked me and gave me a photo of her husband and slipped away into the night. I looked at the photo. Her husband was a gruesome brute who I wouldn't want to meet in a dark alleyway or even a brightly lit main road, come to think of it. She'd written her contact details on the back of the photo, and all of a sudden a thought struck me. Why did she have the photo with her? How did she know she would bump into me on that filthy, wet, foggy London night? The plot thickened, as thick as the syrupy, deep, revolting, stinking pit of slime that was London on that vile night. With my collar up and my face down, I went on my way. That night back home, all my private dick instincts came back to me. I poured myself a whiskey, then another and another, and before long I dusted off and lit up my old opium pipe. When I awoke in the morning, it was just like the old days. I'd pissed myself. After a shower and a change of clothes, I was out following Susan's husband. He was carrying a large bag, and he disappeared into a department store. I followed him at a discreet distance. He definitely wasn't going to his job as a jigsaw puzzle designer, but his actions were no less puzzling. He went into the store's staff room. I cunningly crept in after him and hid behind a cupboard from where I could see him tipping out the contents of his bag. That's not a euphemism. What fell from his bag was a Santa costume. Yes, it seemed he was keeping from his wife the fact that he was working as a department store Santa. But why? That was something I was determined to find out. He put on the Santa costume, left the staff room, and headed towards Santa's grotto. I took a sip of whiskey from my hip flask and lit up my 47th cigarette of the day. After a few minutes and a quick suck on my opium pipe, I'd come up with a plan to keep a close eye on what Santa was getting up to. I'd found an elf's costume in the cupboard, and although it was a bit small, I'd managed to slide myself into it. Then, in the guise of an elf, I snuck into the grotto by the back entrance. Not my usual means of entry, but on this occasion it was the only one on offer. I couldn't go round the front way because Mrs. Santa was there, waiting to greet the visitors. As soon as I was in, I spotted Santa in a clinch with a rather attractive female elf. It looked like he was about to find out if she was naughty or nice. and from where I was standing I'd say she was both. Santa's hands were busying themselves inside her top, caressing her ample elf breasts. If she'd made a Christmas list, Santa really was checking it twice. The horny elf then dropped to her knees, reached inside Santa's pants, and what happened next was something I'd never wanted to see in a grotto. As Santa's beard was off, I took the opportunity to take an incriminating photograph. Unfortunately, I'd forgotten to turn off the flash, so when the shutter clicked, the flashlight alerted them, and they stared straight at me. Santa looked furious, and immediately began to lurch towards me. Fearing for my life, I quickly ran out the front door of the grotto. Santa came after me, but such was his haste, he'd forgotten that his semi-erect penis was flapping about in front of him. All this came as quite a shock to the queuing parents and children, who from that day onwards never again wanted to see Santa anywhere near their chimneys. I kept running until I spotted a storeroom, and being 1 part cunning and 9 parts coward, I dived into it to hide from the savage Santa. After taking off my elf costume, I peeped out the door and saw a very angry Santa being arrested by the police. Well, what I wondered was I to do next. I'd made quite a mess of the case. I suppose I was a bit rusty, and really I just wanted to forget the whole thing and put it down to experience. Then an idea struck me, remembering that beautiful buxom elf and the fact that a store vacancy must just have arisen. I headed towards the personnel office to apply for the job as Santa.